What is going on, guys? My name is Feeds, and welcome to Feeds Mindset episode number 22 with the lady, Miss Maverick. How are you? Welcome in.
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. I really appreciate your time being here today and being able to just talk about yourself and get things out there. I do want to start off just like the way that I always do to kind of explain for everybody watching. We are random people. You have no idea really who I am. I don't really know who you are. And it's just a way of saying that to normalize it for other creators to know that you can step out of your comfort zone. And there's just a lot of cool things that I want to talk about, and I'm really excited to get your perspective on those things. So Mav, to kind of put it in perspective for everybody watching, can you kind of explain, who you are as of current day, and who you would say current day Mav is for everybody watching?
Sure. Current day Mav would be a casual streamer, I guess, on Twitch and Kick. And whenever I'm not free but busy doing active duty Air Force life or busy doing college work, I'm very creative. So I draw and I create digital art, stuff like that. And then I volunteer on my off time with lots of other veterans outside of obviously the military aspect of it. And I hang out with my sister. That's basically about it.
Yeah, no, I mean that's awesome, and you obviously seem like you have a lot of Air Force background, and you have a lot of that veteran background, being able to talk and normalize things for them. How long have you kind of been in that field?
Well, my dad was I grew up with being a military kid. So my dad was Navy for 24 years and I followed him around everywhere. And I think that kind of tied into the what I wanted to do now, but I've been in the Air Force for almost 7 years, I think.
Really?
And two deployments. This is my second base. I absolutely love it and I'm trying to continue with it more and just getting my degrees, all that stuff settled before I get out.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like you're still kind of really passionate. I mean, a thing that I've come to see with a lot of people and even creators, that talk about their military experiences, like a lot of them do kind of feel stuck, and they usually only have like 3 or 4 years of experience. So it's interesting that you
Yeah.
have seven or more, and you're still kind of like wanting more. I mean, would you kind of feel the same way?
Yeah, I do. I think it is what you make it. Your career is your own. I believe that is absolutely true in the military. There people say that it is like a teamwork mindset. However, I do feel like when it comes to your personal career, what you want to do the rest of your life, I really do think that it's in your hands. And I think that even though there's been a lot of times in which I could have gone different avenues or the way that I wanted it to progress in certain ways, I think that I don't think I would have learned what I know now had I not gone through some of the things that I went through early on. And I
Yeah.
think that it's really good to have that now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with your experience and your come up and your family background being specifically in the military, I know that it's a lot about gaming and stuff, but it's still, as you as a creator and obviously being in the military and being a part of that is very important and true to you. So, with Regiment coming into the scene, how did you kind of get into them, and are you happy of the impact and the kind of advocate that you proceed to make being a part of them?
Oh, I absolutely love it. It's I've never knew that there was a military organization that brought about combating mental health through video gaming. I had no
Hmm.
idea that was even a thing. I actually found out about all this kind of stuff when I started my video gaming, I guess career in a way,
Hmm.
in 2020. And that was when Regiment was fairly new. And I started playing like Among Us and stuff, like just on Twitch, just doing the stupid stuff.
Hmm.
And someone had mentioned it to me, and I was like, I'll check it out. Like, yeah, like it's whatever. Maybe I will get into it. Maybe I won't, because I didn't know anything to do with
Right.
Discord. I had no idea what was going on. Um, and so I just joined up in it, and everyone just started talking like, "Oh, what base are you from? Like, where are you at now? Like, what do you play? What's your game? What's your PC like? Like things like that." And it kind of opened up a whole new avenue of, okay, I don't know who you are, but you sound really cool, and you're also military, so it's kind of like the Spider-Man meme where everyone's like pointing
Yeah,
at each other,
like
but they're all exactly the same character. Yeah, that's what exactly how I felt. So I was like, okay, I know who you are, you know who I am, kind of, and you start to build relationships and people that you never thought that you'd be friends with, but who you've never met in real life yet, but over time you will, and it's really cool.
Yeah, so getting into that, starting out in the military and doing your basic training and just getting into it, thinking of old Mav just now understanding what the career that she has ahead of her now. Fast forward where you are now, and mainly your experience with regiment and stuff. I mean, do you think that it was something completely different that you didn't get into? I mean, did you just kind of get into it, just kind of hoping for the best?
Going into video gaming, yeah. I do think that well, I grew up very strict, like Southern Baptist dad, so he
Hmm.
we had, like, time limits for internet and all that kinda stuff, so I grew up very, um, regulated on that area, so going into, like, Call of Duty and, like, the different kinds of things, I never really played violent video games growing up because my dad was very against it. Um And I think that me kind of starting it up when I was in my military career, after my first deployment and everything, I kind of already got desensitized in a sense. And I was like, you know
Hmm.
what? I'm actually really interested in trying to find different avenues in order to combat my mental health and to reach out and get a part of a community that I think is bigger than just the one I have here. And it
Yeah.
definitely worked.
Yeah, no, most definitely, and you have, and I've checked on your page and look at everybody supports you, and I mean, it speaks volumes, and it's important to understand the kind of impact that you make as a creator, and especially in your case, it's more specific because when you say that statement, the impact you make as a creator, obviously it does apply to everybody, but I feel like a lot of people when they think about that statement, they think about people that are full time and that wake up and do this every day. They
Right.
don't think about the smaller version of creators like yourself that do make an impact just with not as much time.
Right.
So coming into that, getting into gaming, finding regiment and stuff, and going forward with your life, do you feel like you've made a pretty big impact, something you didn't think that you would have made when you first got
A
into it?
lot bigger of an impact than I imagined it to be already, and it's wild to see too because I never really got into I don't like being, socially out there in a way
Hmm.
because 'cause I'm a very introverted person,
Sure.
and I don't like to broadcast my personal life and do all those different things, and so trying to force myself out there to be more social and to put more things out there to spread awareness for mental health and over for video games and for veterans and to coordinate things and try to be there for people, it's like kind of it's helping me grow in a way that I never thought was possible, and it's really awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Do you feel like the military has helped your mindset and aspect on those things?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think it definitely has because they push you to do so many voluntold things that make you uncomfortable but help you grow. And I think that regiment's kind of like in that way. They never pushed me to do anything, but if you don't try and get out there and coordinate and do things and meet people, then you'll probably never get anywhere.
Yeah, definitely. So, for other creators out there that are wanting to go down that avenue of being in the military and understanding that kind of lifestyle, would you have any advice for them getting into it if they're not really going into it for the wrong reasons, but they may not have like a right reason to get into it? Do you have like a
Yeah.
something to help them out for that?
Just have fun. Everyone's gonna have a bunch of rules that they're gonna throw at you, like, "You should do this, you should do that." Take your time, have fun. Video games are supposed to be fun. There's supposed to be times in which you can sit down and relax with your friends and create a community that which you love. You don't necessarily have to be the A-list person for all these different things. You can just have fun and relax and be yourself, and everything else will follow suit.
Yeah, definitely. So when you had got into gaming, was it primarily before you had started your career through the military, or was you kind of already a little bit of a gamer before that started?
I was kind of already a little gamer before then, but I never really had a PC or any of that stuff. I was still gaming on like a PS2 and like my Game Boy and stuff like that. Like I was
Hmm.
still, or like an Xbox. I never really was the whole PC gamer part, but now I've got two of them. So it's
Gotcha.
like
So
I,
yeah, I'm kind of interested because like I said, and I told you before this, we talk about gaming and then we'll get into streaming and then we'll talk, a little bit about how you got your name and stuff. And I'm interested in this
yeah,
because most of the time, gaming in general, it just kind of starts out you game and you learn and then you grow and then you eventually get into streaming and it's kind of like this little path that kind of follows. And your
yeah,
path, it's the same path, but you have a divider in there, because of your military experience. Because, just like you said that you did game a little bit, but it wasn't until after you joined the military, which was a big gap for you as a
yeah,
gamer.
it was.
So I am interested in that. So kind of enlighten me and letting me know, how you had got into gaming, as a kid and growing up, all the way to the point right before you had started your new career.
Yeah. So I was homeschooled my 8th and 9th grade year. My parents decided it was a better option for us to go that route, and my brother was really into video games and he would always beat me and everything. And I always was really competitive in that aspect and wanted to beat him. So I spent hours upon hours trying to beat him at literally everything possible. Because I'm the youngest, so I have to,
Hmm.
be that way. And my sister never really cared for gaming. She wasn't really into that aspect. She's more of like a outdoorsy, sports type person. I was more of the nerd that wanted to stay home and learn why things worked the way they did.
Yeah.
And and we're twins, so we're polar opposites in almost every way. Um, but I think I took a break when I started to get more academically involved when I was in high school. And
Hmm.
then I started to branch out more because I was getting ready for colleges and whatnot. And then when I was in college, I was stupid and did just a bunch of partying, do all that stupid
Hmm.
stuff. And I was just a broke college kid, and I wanted to do something bigger than myself, and my dad always told me if I go in the military, just do Air Force enlisted, don't do any other branch enlisted. And he was Navy for 24 years, so I was like, "Well, he's probably right."
Yeah.
So I took my ASVAB and I was already studying for it anyway and saw that I had a career opportunity and I was like, well, I'm never gonna get it out of here if I don't try. So I did, and I absolutely love it. And in the midway through that process after my first deployment, I came back and I kind of wanted to go back to my roots in a way of what did I really enjoy back when I was a kid besides the fact of my military career? Like, what are my
Yeah.
cool hobbies that I like to do besides going to the gym, besides art? Like, what else do I like to do?
Right.
And so a few of my friends were like, "Hey, let's play Among Us or something." And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds fun." And then as soon as I started opening that up, it reminded me so much of my childhood that I was like, "I love this. I genuinely like playing games. Even though I may not be good at it, I actually
Right.
genuinely just like it." And so we kept going and going, and eventually I was like, "I kind of want a PC." And then, we started doing a whole bunch of things of like researching it, YouTube videos, asking friends, reaching out to local community, things like that, and it just sort of started snowballing from there.
Yeah, definitely. So I do kind of want to go back to when you were a kid before your life had kind of transpired into college and stuff. Like, was there certain games that you was normally playing back then?
Yeah. I think I play like Sims and there's a really old game on the PS2 you're riding a dirt bike in the
Hmm.
middle of nowhere. I forgot what it's called. I played that all the time and then there was like Ratchet and Clank, fantasy football stuff or whatever it was on there. Played that a bunch. All the Wii games, all the Guitar Hero, all those. So every single one of those that I know, I'm like, yep, yeah, definitely played those, definitely love those. But
Yeah,
it was never like really any mostly violent video games. I never really got into that.
yeah. I mean, on that topic of the dirt bike games, there was a game called Motocross Mania.
Yeah, I think
And
it might have been that one.
yeah, it was a tad bit violent because you did like whack people and stuff to like like go like in front of them and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
But that definitely was a sick game. I played a lot. Specifically for me and my background, which I've said this a bunch of times on the podcast, but I don't care repeating it because there's probably not a lot of people watching every podcast. So back in 2010, my try to figure out how to lead into to saying this. Obviously I was a kid. I didn't really know a whole lot about gaming around that time. I gamed a little bit before then. I was competitive with my brother and sister. I did want to briefly bring up my brother is also a part of the Air Force as well.
Oh,
He
cool.
kind of had the same thing. He went to a community college, flunked out because he was partying and stuff, and he had went into it, with not the right mindset because it was kind of a last alternative for him, which is nothing wrong with that, but
Yeah, makes
it is
sense.
fast forward now, like it is something that he loves doing. But it's kind of funny that you guys have like morally the same story.
Yeah.
Um,
What does he do?
he's just in the Air Force and he does what's the word? Like he helps like works on the planes. I don't know a whole lot about it. I'm not too invested in it. Um,
Oh, okay.
but we would play the Nintendo 64 a lot. There was a game
Yeah.
called it was Pokemon, like Pokemon Battles or Pokemon League or something like that, and there was a little dumb mini game that you could play, and we had this little $5 cheap WWE Championship belt, and we would play for it every weekend. We would go to school Monday through Friday. The weekend we would all sit down and we would play, and whoever would win would keep that title, and we would like put it in a room. We would like hang it up on the wall, and we would like gloat all the time, and it was just so fun. And I'd played a lot of that and had a pretty decent gaming background, but obviously as a kid, I still did touch grass, go outside and,
Oh,
hanging out and
yeah,
all that stuff.
absolutely.
But unfortunately back in 2010, my our electric had went out. My family just had a rough spot and, bills and stuff, and they couldn't afford it for a couple of days. So we had a generator
Oh, yeah.
that we would use to run the house and stuff so we could all watch TV and listen to the news and stuff. And 2 or 3 days later, I guess we was done with it. It was about like 7 or 8 o'clock. I think we was going to go out and do something, and we had shut it off. And my dad had tossed a blanket over it and shut the garage doors. And he had kind of not like slammed the door hard, but he had slammed the door behind him in the garage to just shut the door. And that
Mhm.
engaged a spark in the generator, and it caused it to blow
Oh,
up.
no.
It caused it to blow up, and our house ended up burning. And mainly only the garage was affected, but the whole house was filled with smoke. And at the time, I think it was either my fifth or sixth grade year, and like my summer had like just started,
Yeah.
and I
Oh,
was,
man.
I didn't really know what to think about it, and my mom and dad was constantly arguing and fighting and stuff because of everything that was going on, and my dad felt
Yeah.
guilty about it because it was like technically his fault, and just a bunch of these things. And so the reason why all this matters is on the same piece of land. We had this kind of rundown trailer. It was livable. It was just dirty and needed clean, but we did have a trailer on the same property that we was able to move into and sleep and stuff. And one of the very few things that survived out of the house was my PlayStation 2. I had a white one, and it had like smoke marks like all the way halfway up
Oh
to
yeah,
up
nice.
to it and stuff. And for whatever reason, it still ran. And all of my games were like really caked and all that, but the inside obviously because it was closed, so the game was still fine itself. And how
Yeah.
my PS2 survived, I have no idea how. But the reason for this is there was a game, Final Fantasy 12. It's my favorite game of all time because it means a lot to me. During that summer of my fifth or sixth grade year, I played that. I was in a room with my dad, and I had, our bed was like really low on the background. I was sleeping on this little like trash twin bed that was all like beaten
Oh,
up
I've
and
got
stuff,
those. Oh yeah.
and playing on this little tiny like box screen TV. And I was playing on it, and it just made me forget about everything. It made me forget about everything that was going on, forget about mom and dad fighting, all the money issues and everything.
Yeah.
And being able to play that game, the game itself is like a 2 or 3 week type of game. You play it for a couple weeks and then you're done. But I just got really invested into it. I wanted to learn all about the license boards and all the different quests you can do and all the hunts and stuff. And I try to complete the game as much as I can. And that really had helped me through my summer to kind of forget about everything. Because I also had, all my friends that was like, not like making fun of me, but just kind of like distancing themselves now because I was in
Yeah.
like baseball and stuff too. And there's a lot of activities that I had to quit because my, family couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
And so the reason why all of that matters is because the feeling that game gave me. I was at like my first ever like depression point of my kid life, because a lot of my activities that I would do, like even something simple like kicking a football, like football was destroyed, couldn't do that, just a bunch of little things, fishing stuff, all
Yeah.
destroyed. And so that helped me get out of that. And so being a kid at almost a little bit after 10 years old and have all that happen to me, and the game being able to take all that away from me made me realize, like, if a game can make me do that to somebody, what if other people watch me play that game? The feeling that it gave me, what if I can give that same feeling to somebody else? And that's a huge game that'll always be a
Yeah.
big impact for me because that game kind of spotlighted my spark in gaming. And eventually it took a couple years. It wasn't until, because I had somewhat of a strict family. They wasn't like super strict, but they just wanted me to hit that like that age where they were like, okay, like as like an excuse, like, okay, he's old enough now, whatever.
Mhm.
And at 14, I got my Xbox 360, and my parents allowed me to get Xbox Live, and I played GTA and some stuff, and got
Oh yeah.
into a bunch of other games. But it was having that understanding of way back when of how that really helped me and getting into gaming and just really being invested into it and connecting with all these people and having these little dumb shit talks when you're playing Search and
Mm.
Destroy and stuff. Like it just meant a lot to me. And so I started realizing when I started tapping into Twitter and understanding what streaming is and what FaZe Clan was, and even eventually, like what Regiment is and what it's about. I've seen a lot of creators that are out there struggling and everybody having their own battles. And that just kind of what made me want to be a creator. I was like, I was at my lowest and a game helped me with that. So
Mhm.
what happens if I, as a creator, could play that game and other people can talk to me about their situation? And that's kind of like how my whole mindset like developed, being able to see the world differently than a lot of other people at kind of younger age. And that definitely helped me. So
I
being
think
able
you
to,
accurately described exactly what most streamers want to share with their people, their community, is that feeling of like we're all in this together, we're all going through this one story, and it matters a lot to you because you're the one that's going through with your entire community. But it also gives you a sense of like a creative outlet in the way that you never thought possible. Especially if you're going through something, you you can still handle what you need to handle, but you can also still take a break too, and you can
yeah.
still take that time and focus on what you want to do and what you generally enjoy doing.
Yeah, and like I said, I think it's even for this podcast, I think it's important to tap back into where you used to be from because like I said, like now even like fast forward to my life, there's like financial issues that I have. Everybody has their own battles and stuff,
Yeah.
and there's things that you get caught up in, things that are going on in your life, and it does make you wonder. It's like, man, should I even stream today? Like even if you're
Mm.
not doing nothing for 6 hours, you're like, I just don't want to stream today. And that's kind of the difference in me. Like in my head is like, why? And I'm like, oh, I'm not feeling it. And like my head is still like,
Mm.
but why though? Like, why are you feeling it? And it's like, oh, I just, I'm just not having a good day. And my head is like, you have 6 free hours. What the fuck are you going to do?
I have
And,
definitely
and, and
felt
I'm
that where
like, you
I'm
know
like,
what?
"Oh, I'm
Fuck it.
just
I'll
so
stream
tired."
whatever,
Yeah.
And
Or I'll
so
come home from work and I'm like, "You know what? I don't have time to, like, be this energetic person that comes on stream and is like, 'What's up, guys?'" Like, I don't have that mindset, and then I get down to the dumps about it because 'cause I'm like, "Man, I'm not gonna give a good stream if I'm feeling this way." But at the same time, those games still help me feel better. But so that's why I think it's good to have that community. So you don't necessarily have to stream, but you can still game with your people. And I feel like
yeah.
that's good
Yeah,
too.
most definitely. And I think that's, like I said, that's a little bit different of things that I do because, I do advocate for, if you don't want to stream, if you're not feeling it or having a bad day, like you shouldn't. Like you
Yeah, you
definitely
don't have
shouldn't.
to.
But there has definitely been some cases where I'm like, man, I'm just having a bad day. I don't want to do nothing. And then I kind of not like force myself to stream, but I'm just kind of like, you know what, why not? And it ends up turning out to be a good stream, and it's kind of just
Like if
like
you
you have to understand the kind of person you are and the way that you're feeling because your feelings are always valid. But at the same time, is what you're going through important enough to stop doing what you love? Or do you feel okay enough to just do it and just see how it turns out? And at the end of the
exactly, 'cause I
day,
think that
at the end of the day, if you had a horrible stream, still eat the VOD. Nobody will know,
yeah, no, absolutely. I think I've deleted a couple of odds like from the very beginning of when I first started streaming, where it was like all the no, that all this wasn't here. I was in a completely different area of the city and everything, and I was literally just zoned in, not even talking to the chat and just gaming. I wasn't even saying anything, and I was like, yeah, that needs to go. Like
Yeah,
that needs
yeah,
to get out of here.
definitely. So yeah, so I'm intrigued in all of those different factors and stuff, and I know that we kind of did touch base a little bit on the other flip side of your gaming in college and stuff. So you did play some variety games, and you started tapping into a couple creators, understanding, playing with some friends. Where did PC gaming come into play, and was there a game that highlighted it, or was it just PC gaming in general, just being vast in that world?
I was dating somebody at the time who had a PC, and he had wanted to do like a whole game room setup
Hmm.
area, and I didn't know anything about PCs. I'm not even gonna lie, I had no idea.
Hmm.
Um, and after I got into Regiment, I started reaching out to different people who knew more about it than I did, and I started looking at pre-built. So I still have my pre-built. I just upgraded a bunch of stuff inside of it, but um, that kind of spearheaded me getting one and like starting that process because I learned about it. And then whenever we started building um, things into it, that number one game, because he was really into Call of Duty, I think it was Vanguard,
Hmm.
and I started to get into it, and so I just started learning. I kept failing every single time that it was, but I loved it because it was something he liked to do. And so I was like, well, since you're on here playing all the time, I want to learn it too because I like gaming. I love Call of Duty and I want to get back into it, but I have no idea what I'm doing. But since you like it so much, I'm gonna try to do the same thing. But maybe you can teach me, and then maybe we'll both get like happy with it, and we'll both become that like, we're doing something together, but we're also still learning and bouncing
Right.
ideas off of each other. And it was really fun.
Yeah, no, I mean it's sick. It's cool, and I kind of in a certain attitude, I kind of had the same way. I mean, I started out with a pre-built. I had back when COVID had hit, I was working at a call center, and we had all got laid off because of COVID and stuff. And it
Oh
was
man.
for like 2 or 3 days, I was like, I have no idea what I'm going to do. And then I live in Kentucky, so the state of Kentucky released a whole thing about unemployment, and as long as your company that laid you off, blah 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 blah. Fast forward, got it, all that stuff, and I was making like $200 to $300 more a week that I would be making on my normal paycheck. So for 2 paychecks, I just saved up all my money and bought a PC for $800 straight out at a local store of mine for $800,
Yeah.
and then played Valorant. Valorant was my first keyboard and mouse game that I really got into. Played that for 6-ish months or whatever, but I had a lot of graphics card issues. Come to find out, long story short, I had a faulty graphics card, so
Mm.
I had to send my PC back into the company, and they was going to fix it. But during delivery, somebody dropped it and it busted. And so
No.
they had allowed me to get a brand new PC, and that they were going to pay for it because they charge UPS and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then I got a new one, and it was great. Ever since then, for the most part, it was great. I didn't have hardly any issues. And then, with me and my fiance, she wanted to get into gaming and stuff, and I financially at the time was able to do something, so I gave her my pre-built, and then I Spent, I think it was like around $2,000, which this was COVID time. So
Oh,
nowadays it'd
yeah.
be like 1,400. But
Oh,
I
yeah.
had a great buddy of mine that lives in Belgium. His name is Wizzy. Shout out to him. He really helped me understand what I need and how to build it and send me good videos. And so I sat down, I ordered all the parts, waited for it to come in, and I built my own PC. And I understood what happens with it, the schematics of it. I was interested in how they all
Yeah.
correlate with one another, and that really diversified myself. And then fast forward a little bit later, my fiance wanted to get into streaming, and the pre-built that I had wasn't really that good. And so I sold I sold the pre-built that was $800. I ended up getting lucky and selling it for 1,000. There's nothing wrong with it.
Wow.
And so sold it for 1,000, and then with a little bit of extra money bought her. It was another pre-built, but it was, a solid PC, which she has
It was
now.
better, yeah.
And so that was really important to be able to be diversified just in PCs alone, because I do feel like that is a big thing that helps me stand out, is my knowledgement in PCs and systems and understanding things, and just that little bit of advice that somebody wouldn't have. And
Mhm.
I definitely think that has been a huge advocate on my streaming
Oh, yeah.
career, just being able to be knowledgeable in that. But that's kind of how I had got into PC
Yeah.
gaming and
I learned
stuff.
a lot about PCs when I had one come here, and I had to basically when I tore apart my pre-built and re-put it back together with the new upgraded stuff in it, I learned so much just by myself and doing it on my own way. And watching all the different YouTube videos, like, oh, okay, this is what this does. What does that do? Okay, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and figure this one out. And there's actually like a kick stream where I'm literally building. I found someone gave me a motherboard, and I was putting it in this old case that I had, like
Hmm.
an old NZXT case. I'm like, I wonder if it fits. Screw it, I'm gonna stream. So I'm just sitting on top of this desk, like just putting it all together. How's you guys doing? This I'm doing
Yeah.
great. Like just building it, and it was so fun. And when I was deployed my second time, obviously I didn't have my gaming setup or anything like that stuff. I just had like I think it was an Xbox or something,
Hmm.
or no, a PS3 or 4, whatever it
Right.
was. And that's when the Modern Warfare 2 came out, and I had the beta. I was playing it on the super shitty Qatari Wi-Fi, just sitting there going, "What is happening?" And I just kept learning about more about PCs. I built my own Discord through there. Figured out how to do that, and I got to meet Toothless and Johan and Gabe and all them from Regiment. And it was so cool because they all just put in their input as well, and then I put in mine, and it was this whole like collaborative thing that we did. And as the day I got back, I got my second PC from Paradox, and
Mm.
it was like the perfect timing. Like my dog was born, like the
Yeah.
PC came in at the right time, all this thing, and everything in here is inverted. So me trying to put in the XTX, I was like, wait, what the fuck? Like, what is this? Like, I was like, and it worked out great. And but it was a really cool learning experience for me to figure out the game room too as well, and learning what to do with it. And it's been so fun just to learn.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm glad that we've kind of covered all those topics about gaming and stuff, and I do want to get into streaming a little bit. I mean, how did all of that you correlated, understanding that, and being in the military, and then having less devoted time, like what made you want to get into streaming?
That's a really good question. I really do think that getting into streaming was more of just kind of like a creative avenue for me to express how much I like my journey as far as like what going from playing a game, where if I wanted to just hang out like and chill, like that was my initial thought, like I'm just gonna put it on here. If no one comes in here, that's cool, I don't care. I'm just gonna be myself and just see what happens. And then as soon as I joined Regiment, it was like, oh, you have like 25 people watching you, or like 10 people watching you. And I'm like, oh, hello, like how's it going? And it started like spurring from there of like people just coming in and saying hi. And I started to become a part of the stream team for Regiment, where you're streaming on their channel once a week for about
Hmm.
2 hours. And that really helped me too, because that really cultivated a whole more professional aspect of, okay, I want my graphics this certain way. I want to be able to advocate for this instead of that and whatever, whatnot.
Right.
And meeting other streamers that have different like sets that you have, or like different, better things than you do. And you're like, wait, what is that? Like, that was cool. Like, where do you get that? And
Yeah.
it was just really, it was a really good resource for me to use at the time when I was still learning.
Yeah. I
And they're
mean,
just awesome people.
that's really sick because most people that get into streaming is usually like somebody, and I'm not saying like this wasn't the case for you. Like usually it's like somebody helped them, or they was like stuttering, but like I don't know if I should do it. What are people going to think? And it seems
Yeah.
like you're like kind of the rarity that was like, I'm just playing, so why not have other people watch me? I feel like that's like I know it's probably something
Yeah.
for you that's normalized, but in the world of streaming, most people have to have some type of excuse or some type of help to click the start stream button. and it seems like you just did it just to do it. So I do want to get it. I do want to know more about Mav and how you got your name and stuff. But because we're on this topic, I do want to talk about, for especially for specifically women creators, ones that do struggle with
Oh yeah.
starting streaming, and do ones that do struggle with collabing and reaching out and just typing in chats, and just trying to build connections and
Oh
build
yeah.
friends. And you seem like you have a very diversified opinion on it, because it doesn't really feel to me that you needed those excuses to do that. And a lot of people do struggle with it for valid reasons. Not saying that they
Yeah,
don't,
of course.
have valid reasons, but what would
Yeah.
your advice be to other creators that, even if it's not women, but, women more specifically, they are
Well,
affected and don't know what, how other people are going to treat them, and hate raids and all the dumb
well,
stuff that comes along with it? What advice would you give to break out of their comfort zone?
for women that are just starting out streaming, you don't have to wear a crop top to get attention. You do not have to do that. Just be yourself. Be your authentic, nerdy self if you want to. Your personality will shine through no matter what you look like, what you wear, what you do. And I really do think that if you're just having fun and you're playing a video game, have fun. It's there for you and your enjoyment and your community. And meeting friends is cool along the way, but you don't necessarily need everyone's opinion to tell you what you need to do. And there's a lot of people that came by, especially when I first started out, that were saying, "Oh, you're a girl, you'll get tons of views," or "Oh, if you wear that, crop top, you'll be great," or like, "Oh, if you do this instead, you'll be great," or whatever. And I think that's one, super shitty, and two, shut the fuck up and don't tell me what to do and what to wear. I'm gonna have fun with playing the way that I want to play it. And if I feel comfortable in a crop top, cool. But if I'm not doing it for you, I'm not doing it for anybody else. And have your own standards and your own morals for the way that you want to present yourself, and everything else will be fine.
Yeah, no, 100%. I fully do agree with that. And on that, on that specific note, for people that struggle with reaching out and building connections and making friends, and they're like, oh, like, I don't know how they're going to feel. What if they say no and stuff? Like, on that topic too, like, what would your advice be for creators that do want to stream and do get into it, but their excuse is they don't have friends and they don't think that people will support them?
If you don't have friends, reach out to me. I'll be there. Or if you have people that just like lurk, or people that are just around the area that, there's a lot of people that come by, especially too, that are like, oh, I found you on the For You, or like I just saw you like throughout the homepage of Twitch or Kick or whatever, and I just like clicked on you. Most people that you'll say that don't have the friends or all that stuff, like if they stream for about 10 to 15 hours, or maybe even like just 2 hours or an hour, you most likely just find at least one or two random people that come in and want to be a part of whatever you're streaming, and that's okay. But if you don't have any friends, reach out to me. I'm always here.
Yeah, yeah, and I
Absolutely.
think that's very important. And shout out to Mav. Obviously, her stuff is below in Twitter, and her links in the description. And I kind of say this little tiny spill on almost every podcast. On the page of Feeds Mindset that I've created specifically for this, mainly just to highlight episode by episode, and like nothing in between, or they don't have to scroll and scroll. It's right there for them. A part of the bio is saying guest followed. And again, I say this all the time, but it's not to flex how many people have been on the podcast. I'm grateful, but it's a big thing is, Feeds Mindset. I believe that I see things differently. I feel like I have different advice and different takes on things. So if you support me and you think that I am a good change and a good impact in the community, everybody that is on my podcast, I see as somebody making a type of impact. And so I like having it that way, saying where guests are followed, because if you struggle with reaching, even in that context, if you're a woman and you're like,
Right.
oh, like Feeds does seem like a cool guy, but I'm still uncomfortable because he's a guy. Perfectly fine. That's why I have so many women that's been on this podcast. You can reach out to them and it doesn't bother me a bit. And that's kind of the
Yeah.
cool, like, double entendre about it, is because you don't have to reach out to me to build a connection just because it's my podcast. If you connect with Mav and you want nothing to do with me, I could give a fuck. Like, that's fine. As long as you're happy, and as long as I
Right.
made that impact to change that for you, that's all I care about. I mean, yeah, like, if you
Right.
want to support me, come by, say nice things, that is great. But my
Oh
whole,
yeah.
demeanor of this is to be able to get people to normalize for mental health and stuff. And I really do kind of want to keep stimulating on this, but I want to make sure I don't forget the topic about how you did come up with your name. So before we get into something that you did want to talk about, where did your name come from, and how did it stimulate?
I think a lot of people already know where this is going, but obviously Top Gun. I grew up watching that movie. I absolutely adored it. A part of since my dad was Navy and everything, I was like, "Oh, Dad, do you fly the jets?" And he was like, "No." I was like, "Oh, okay." But I absolutely loved the movie. Being stationed at a bunch of different naval air stations. We actually went to high school. I finished out my senior year at Top Gun, the place where they not where they filmed it, but where it actually is in
Yeah, that's
Nevada.
sick.
And I was just obsessed with it. I loved it so much. And like it was just one of those things where it was obvious to me. When I was in college, my name was still Maverick because I think at the time when I was in college, people were like, "Oh, we gotta." They were coming up with nicknames or something stupid like it was like that, and I was like, "Oh, I like Mav," and they were like, "For what?" And I was like, "Oh, for like Maverick and Iceman, you know, like the whole like that all that stuff." And me and my buddy, his name was Iceman because he was a tall blonde dude, and I was the short brunette lady. So he was like, "Oh yeah," I was like, "There you go, we're Iceman and Maverick," and that is the way it stuck. And I
That's
think my
funny.
Instagram handle was that for like the longest time, so it just became a part of my gamer tag, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, and that's sick. And I say the same thing too. I mean, names are really important. And I feel like that's also kind of something that I want to normalize because, just like I said, I feel like I view things differently. I mean, I've gave the same example. A shout out to Bams who just hit 1 million subscribers. Like that's
Wow.
amazing that you start from nothing and you work your way up to build and finally get to where you want to be. He is a COD content creator and mainly does a lot of sniping content, but other stuff. He just recently hit 1 million subscribers, but I use the excuse for him because yeah, like it's amazing what he's done. But in my mindset, I love knowing where Bam started from and how he created that name to then use that as a brand and get to where he's at
Right.
currently now. And that's the way that I always interpret things. That's the way that I interpret feeds with my name, with your name, Maverick, and stuff. I think those are the more important things because at the end of the day, if you get to where you finally want to be, does your name matter? Not really. But for the ones that do care and support about you, your name does mean a lot because your name is your branding because you're not going to go by your government name and then hit where you want to be. That's just not life. You'll
Yeah.
get doxxed and a bunch of weirdos in the world. So we have to create aliases. But I think that it's important that your alias is something that means something or matters in somewhat way to you. And there is a lot of creators that struggle with finding names and figuring that out. I mean, do you kind of have the same opinion that your name means more than the content that you do at a certain aspect?
In a certain aspect, yeah, it definitely does because that reminds me of my childhood and the way that I felt with my dad and the way that I loved that movie and the way that that movie meant to me. And I just think that, I have what is it? There's like a kit back here. Yeah, that one right on the couch. That one says "Talk to
Mm,
Me, Goose" and it says Maverick on it, like in the little flight thing. I love that movie so much because it reminds me of my family growing up, and that matters more to me than, something that I stream for a couple hours a day or whatever it is. But yeah.
yeah. No, and like I said, it's very important, and it's even the same thing in the podcast. I mean, like, yeah, like I'm reminding people and stuff, but at the same time, it's not even really the fact that I'm wanting you to understand where you came from. It's the fact that I want to raise awareness for other creators that maybe they want this conversation, maybe they want to be on here and talk, or there's plenty that just want to listen and want to vibe, and that's perfectly fine. But regardless whether I talk to you specifically or not, I want to raise awareness that it does matter and that it does make a difference in your world. And it may not mean a lot now when you're starting out, especially if you're just now making whatever alias or whatever name that you have. But when you finally get to where you want to be, because you will, if you have your passion and if you stay true to it, a lot of people get burnt out and they're like, oh, like it's just so and so is doing so much better than me and he doesn't deserve it, blah, 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 blah. I'm just never going to get there. And it's like, well, you won't. Not with that mindset. You won't.
And
And so
obsession beats talent every time.
yeah, and that's definitely a big hard hit one that I want people to understand is it may not matter now, but it'll matter in the future. But what you do now dictates how your future is perceived. Um,
Yep.
so on that topic of mental health and awareness and stuff, this is usually around the time where I'll just kind of get back into current day things. But I do give everybody the option to speak about things that they're passionate about, things that they want to
Yeah.
raise awareness about. And yours was a 24/7 stack up crisis line.
Mhm.
So I would love for you to elaborate on that, raise awareness for other people that, and even like me, I'm not saying that I don't know what that is, but I'm definitely not diversified specifically what that is. So
Yeah, of course.
anybody that's listening, let them know what that's about and why it means so much to you.
Of course. So StackUp is another gaming organization that sends out crates and different things to other veterans, especially those who are deployed, or they send out basically PS4s and PS5s and different people and games and whatnot to veterans that are help combat mental health. And one of the great things that they offer is a 24-hour crisis hotline, where if you call them, you can talk to an actual veteran that's probably gone through something similar that either you have gone through, either in your military career or even personally, and they're able to help you and just stay on the phone with you for as long as you need it to. It is a great, great avenue to go down to if you ever need someone to talk to.
Yeah, definitely. And are you Obviously I know that you're passionate about it and stuff, but how did you get into understanding what that was and kind of making that a part of your lifestyle?
You mean stack up or mental
Yeah,
health?
I mean, like, yeah, like incorporating that and using that as kind of something to raise awareness about, not only for your military
Yeah.
career, but for gaming and people that don't know what that
Um,
is.
yeah, no, I grew up with my dad has got PTSD from being on the USS Cole in 2001. He's got a lot of like issues in that area and that he doesn't talk about. And my sister and I, we both struggle from the depression and things like that. It's an everyday thing. Um, Mine came from with younger, before prior military things as well as hers. And I think that over time we've kind of leaned on each other slash leaned on um, like going to therapy and whatnot and finding things that work best for us. And honestly, gaming's been one of those great avenues that have helped both of us and our family, which I've tried to get my dad into gaming as well. He's busy doing whatever he does right now, but
Um,
yeah. I kept telling him, I was like, we should do like Lego Star Wars or something. But he's like, I'm busy with, time zone differences. I'm over in Europe, you're over in the States. I'm like, yeah, I know. Um, but that was one of the avenues that really helped me. And whenever I became part of regiment, they were partnered with Stack Up. And I didn't really hear about Stack Up until I think I really got involved with them. I tried holding like a whole event or gaming event and when I was in Qatar for my second deployment. And I tried to get that whole coordinated, but I think it was the MWR. Someone didn't talk to me or whatever it was, but um, I heard about them in their crisis line, and I was like, "That is so cool," because I know that the VA does it as well, but
right.
I didn't know that there were actual veterans the other side of the phone talking to you about the same issues that they had as well. If you do it too, like it's really cool how similar people can talk to you about the issues that matter a lot to you, or that
Yeah.
what you're going through mentally. You can be like, "Hey, I'm really struggling with my depression. I'm fucked up right now. I want someone to talk to," and
Yeah.
they're like, "Dude, I've been there. Like I've definitely been there." There's a really good um, I think not like it's like a little story
Hmm.
that Regiment put out on Twitter one time. I love it. Every time I see it, I retweet it because I just love it. It's the soldier's in a hole and his leadership is walking around him and they just go, "Oh, it's okay. Here's a shovel. You can dig yourself out of it." Or like, "Oh, just read the book. You'll be fine." And it's not until his buddy comes by and sees like, "Hey, dude, you're in a hole," where he jumps down there in there with him and helps him out of the hole. They come out of it together. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that I love is that when people know what you've gone through because they've also gone through it, you guys can come out of it together better. And
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, most definitely, and I'm, it definitely humbles me and hits my heart that seeing somebody like yourself be so passionate about it. I mean, it is difficult to talk about those things because a lot of
Oh yeah.
people that want to talk about it have experienced it, and there's a lot of people that don't want to talk about it because they have experienced it, and it is big. And for you to be, and I know I keep saying advocate, but it's kind of like the best word that I can think of. But
Oh,
it is, it is important that you be an advocate for it. Do you feel like being a part of regiment has helped your mindset in that way, especially for your military lifestyle?
yeah, I think it absolutely has. I mean, whenever I go back to work, I do get made fun of occasionally because like, "Oh, you're the gamer girl that's part of regiment. That's your little group." And I was like, "Hey man," I was like, "Listen, if you guys play video games and you're in the military or you have friends or family that are in the military or whatever they do, they game too, I'm like, you're all more than welcome to come on in and say hi and hang out." There was my seer guy, he actually came over to my house because I learned so much about PCs, and
Hmm.
he had a PC that he wanted me to look at it fixed, and I ended up fixing his PC for him. And I was like, "See, I'm not a nerd now anymore, huh?" I was like I was like, "See, I
You
was
got your
still
get
PC,
back.
that's why."
That's funny.
And, but it was like it definitely helped me bring about more awareness not only to regiment, but just to the fact of being comfortable with the people that you surround yourself with, and yeah, mental health is uncomfortable to talk about, especially if it is sensitive to you or to what else, but the more that I talk about it, the more that I comfortable I get with bringing about it and talking more about me personally and how the way that I dealt with it. And I may go through things entirely different than somebody else, but if we can relate in the aspect that yeah, it sucks, and but yeah, it's a daily struggle, but hey, I'm here for you because I care about you, then we can maybe hopefully squash it. Hopefully in
Yeah.
the future, you'll see. Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely. So for creators, specifically for military creators, because I'm sure that they are watching this, that aren't a part of regiment, what advice would you give to them where they are somebody that could be struggling with mental health, or they could have people that they're surrounded by that don't fully understand the world that they live in and they want to connect more? I mean, what advice would you give to them on knowing whether or not they would want to be a part of regiment and branch themselves out. It's kind of weird to say branch out because like the
Yeah.
military, but it does apply. So what's your take on that?
I think if you're definitely uncomfortable and you feel like you're a stick on the mud about, or you just feel like you're the black sheep of the family, that you just want a game and you know that games help you. You're never gonna be ostracized or at all feel like you're unwelcome at regiment. If you're going through something that you need a camaraderie or a good group around you, regiment's that number one family that we love people like that to come in. Yeah, everyone's welcome. Doesn't matter if you're, purple, yellow, you like the color green, someone likes the color blue. It doesn't matter. We like everybody in there and we want to support and we love you already. Also Stack Up is since we're partnered with them, we already have all their links and everything that you need for resources as well. And on top of that, even if you're getting out of the military, we have VA reps that work with us as well. So if you need help in like anything, we're always here.
Yeah.
And there's so many good resources for you to not feel alone because you're not.
Yeah, it's amazing, and like I said, I feel like just like with my brother, like fast forward now, like obviously he does love being in the Air Force, and he wouldn't change it, but he did get into it, for the kind of wrong reasons, but eventually ended up loving it, which is good because obviously it isn't for everybody. There's been tons of people that
Oh
join
yeah.
the military and they get out, and I think that it is amazing that Regiment and Stack Ups and all these other organizations and stuff give that outlet to people that are looking for it because when you're stuck in something and you want to get out and you like in your head that you don't know of any options but there are options out there, that's the thing that stinks because it's not the fact that that you're stuck, it's the fact that you have nobody to help you think of options that you
Right.
don't know are options. So something like that, like what you were saying, I think that's a beautiful thing for them and those creators and those people that do serve for our country. Shout out to them. It's important because it lets them understand options that they may not even know is an opportunity.
Even if you don't want to talk about what you're going through, we'll just sit in the VC with you and just watch a movie or something, or we'll play a video game together, or we'll talk about something else entirely. There's been lots of times where I'll have a friend come over and we're literally just sitting in silence watching a movie for an hour and a half. And then I'm like, "Thank you, I really appreciate it." And they're
Yeah,
like, "For what?" And I'm like, "Just being here. It's nice."
it's the
And
little
it
things
helps
in
out more
life.
than you know.
It
Yeah.
definitely does. So yeah, so that kind of does wrap up everything that I did want to talk about. I'm glad that everybody watching, and especially people that are in the military, get to understand who you are more and understand a bit more Mav and how you stimulated from and stuff. And I do appreciate your time sharing everything and sharing these stories and raising awareness for mental health and for crisis lines and for people that are affected and that just need somebody to talk to. So before we end off on here, is there anything that you have upcoming in your stuff that you're excited to share with everybody?
Yes, absolutely. If you guys are not aware, Regiment's also going to TwitchCon in October, and I will be there. We work in the booth there, and I'm really, really excited to get to know everyone, get to see them finally in person, get to hug you. I'm so excited. Um, and I'm also super excited for my upcoming streams. I got a lot of new content coming up, and I'm really excited to start sharing with everybody.
Yeah, awesome. And I'm sure that they'd be glad to see it. And I think that also be kind of, that's kind of cool, doing this podcast and, somebody that you end up meeting, can watch that podcast. And it's a cooler way because now they just understand you a little bit better. I mean, they already wanted to see you enough, but who knows, after seeing this podcast, maybe it hits home for them a little bit more now that they kind of
I
get to
hope so.
understand who you are. I do want to say this. I am proud of you. I'm proud that I know that you have talked about having other experiences and being on interviews and stuff, but you've made it a big point before we started this that you don't talk about yourself a lot, and I think you raise awareness and are an idol for many other people that because there are people that don't want to talk about yourself, and I know that you do have this experience that makes it easier for you, but you still didn't have to do it. And so being able to be on this podcast, obviously I'm thankful for your time, but I'm more thankful of the fact that you're raising awareness for other creators that are passionate about what they do, but there's some that aren't as passionate as who they are, and you being able to normalize, hey, it's okay to take a step back and be thankful for what you've become. A lot of people don't take that time. So I'm proud of you, and I appreciate the fact that you do give that to other people watching and letting them understand that.
Thank you. That means a lot. I appreciate that.
Of course. So yeah, before we end off, is there any last words you'd want to say to anybody watching?
No, actually, I think it's really good. Thank you guys so much for watching and for being here and for supporting all of us. We really appreciate it. I love the community that this whole gaming community is. I love the people in it. It makes me so happy to see that people still love playing video games and still love each other. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, go check Mav out. Her Twitter is right below her head in the description. It's her links and everything. Go check that out. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been episode 22, I believe. It really means a lot. Go check her out. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is Feeds Mindset. My name is Feeds, and I'm out, guys.